I've tried so many times to make a consistent schedule for myself, and every single time it has failed. And I feel like there are probably people who can kind of relate to that. I'm sure I'm not probably the only person who tries to make a schedule and then it fails, and then a couple months later you try again and it fails, and it just keeps seeming to fail every single time. It's a little bizarre. I recently talked about, last week, I talked about how my therapist kind of mentioned that, like, you should almost kind of make your schedule kind of like shifts. And I'd heard about this sort of thing where it's like, oh, you kind of have like your phase of your mind where it's like you got to do some deep work, you got to get your hard work done, and then, you know, after that becomes like kind of like your creative work, and then after that you're kind of like in your restful mind or whatever. So then it's like, okay, you're starting to wind down, get ready for bed, not thinking about stuff, and then it like repeats. I've heard of that, but the idea of like morning shift, work shift, night shift kind of really got me interested. Maybe think, you know what? Maybe this has some merit to it. So I said, okay, let's try this. And the first couple days honestly went pretty well. I feel like I was doing a lot more than I was before. But then something happened on Saturday, which I've talked about in multiple of the past videos. There was a conflict with my coworker, like a pretty big kind of conflict, and he was trying to say, oh, I'm gonna get you fired, and you don't do any work, and I'm doing all your work, and even your other coworker hates you, which is absolutely not true. Point is, I have made a lot of videos about that, and I'm not gonna beat it to death at this point, but the reason why I'm bringing it up is because it kind of threw my whole schedule into a complete fucking trash, fucking like dumpster fire, you know? I had an idea of how that Saturday was gonna go. I had gotten things done up to that point. Then I got home and everything changed, because it's like, okay, well, now I have to figure out what the hell to do. And I'm trying to think about, well, I'm going in tomorrow in the morning, so I gotta get up early. And I gotta figure out, what am I gonna say? And I was trying to like make a transcript of the recording that I had to like kind of show them like, this is what he said to me, you know, that whole sort of thing. So I'm trying to make that, and all my other stuff that I wanted to do kind of falls through the cracks for the most part. And then after that, my schedule just kind of died. And I tried to revive it. I would like look at it, I'd be like, oh, you know, I did some of this stuff, but I don't have to do everything, but like I'll try to do some stuff when I can. It just died. It just died. And even yesterday, I'm sitting there in the dentist office, like, you know what, I'm waiting. Let's just make a quick schedule, you know, and I'm gonna get rid of most of the stuff, but just like, here's a basic thing I want to do. Just like, relax after I get home. I'll make a schedule, and it'll be like a very basic schedule. And it was one other thing I wanted to do, I can't remember. And I was like, that's it. And then I got home, that didn't happen at all. I got home, I was like, I want to relax. I just went to the dentist and everything. I was playing some Minecraft for a little bit, which I'll come back to a little later. There's something else about that particular session of me playing Minecraft I want to talk about too. But I played some Minecraft, and I was like, you know, I kind of want to play some Balatro. I've had this itch to play Balatro for a while. I haven't played it since like December. So I booted it up, and then 4 hours of my life just kind of poofed into thin air. And then I was like, oh shit, well, it's late. And then things just kind of didn't really happen for the most part. And I've noticed this trend a lot, where when I start something, for example, I start a game, or I start writing something. I'll start working on it, and then if I stop in the middle of it, then I just kind of stop completely. And I feel like I can never get back into it. And it's sort of the thing where it's like, when you fall off the wagon, and then you can't really get back on it very easily. It's not like there's some fucking beautiful stairs you can just easily get back up on it. It's not easy to get back on once you fall it off. And this is kind of the problem that I've had. And it's happened to me many times with the schedule, where it's like, I'll start it and I'll be like, this is good. and then it falls apart. And I wonder why. And what I ultimately kind of realized is that this really goes back to the idea of having a fresh start. Because I feel like it's so easy to do stuff when you've got a fresh start. Like, you can just be like, this is something new, this is something easy for me to do, I got this. And ironically, the example that I have of this is office supplies. I don't know why, but I've had this, like, obsession with office supplies for most of my life, I feel like. And I think part of that was that there was always kind of that sensation of a fresh start when you have office supplies. For example, you get a new pen, you take off the little thing on the tip of it, right? And it's fresh ink. It's writing amazingly. It's not like the pen you've been using for 4 years and, like, you know, it's getting kind of faded and not great. This is like beautiful new pen. It's writing insanely well. And you've got like a new notebook. You open it at the first page. You don't have to flip through half of it to figure out where was I. It's just there. Like, it's just, you know, you open it first page and you just get to write on a blank page. It's just great. And I think that has always kind of been the thing with office supplies for me. I've always had this fascination with office supplies because of that. Because they kind of symbolize like a fresh start in a way. And I even actually kind of used this, I'm not gonna lie. When I was applying to a Staples, I kind of mentioned, because obviously it's like, okay, yeah, I like technology. I have a computer science degree and all that. But it was also like, I like office supplies. Because to me, they kind of symbolize a fresh start. So, that was sort of what I did. That's sort of how I've been with office supplies. And I feel like part of it, too, is office supplies also symbolized the start of, like, a new school year, which I'll get back to later. But I liked having a fresh start to the school year because it's like new teacher, you know, no past grades holding you back or anything, which I'll come back to later again. But the point of that all is I felt like fresh starts were a thing that was really associated with office supplies for me. And I have a couple other examples of things where I felt like I needed a fresh start. And I think the example of this, the easiest example I can throw out here, is games. Because one of the biggest ones is Breath of the Wild. And I talked about this in a video where I talked about like why I was kind of like, you know, I've never really gotten into Zelda. And Breath of the Wild was one of those games where I looked at it and I said, this game is, I mean, it's very impressive. It looks very good. It generally is pretty fun, and there's a lot of stuff to do. There's a lot of content. There's a massive fucking world. Problem is, I start the game, I'm into it. Okay, this is cool. You know, I'm liking this whole adventure, right? And I'm liking jumping off of the starting island. This is cool. But then, at some point, I put it down for a little bit, and I can never get it. I can never get back into it again. I'm thinking, I start it, I boot up the game, and I'm just like, what was I doing? And this is a serious problem for me. I have never been able to finish Breath of the Wild for that exact reason. I've never even gotten far in Breath of the Wild. I don't even think I've beaten like a divine beast or whatever it is. I've never even gotten remotely close to beating Breath of the Wild. And the reason for that is just because I just can't get back into it. And another example I'm going to give here too, which kind of, it's a little sad almost, is Persona Q, which I know is like, what's a Persona Q? I only know about Persona 5 and Persona 3 Reloaded, or Reloaded, Persona 3 Reload. What is that? that's like saying there's a Persona 2 or something. But if you don't know, Persona Q was kind of this weird Persona game they released on the 3DS. It was like Persona was still PlayStation like exclusive pretty much. Like they released like Arena on Xbox too, and like, that was kind of that. Persona was like a PlayStation thing, but then they made a 3DS game, and the reason why it was a 3DS game was that it was kind of this weird mix of Persona and then another Atlas IP they had called Etrian Odyssey. Is that what it is? I don't know. And it's like, just like a dungeon crawler sort of thing, like basically like the old Persona games before Persona 3, where it's like, first person dungeon crawler almost. And I honestly, I did very much enjoy that game. I think that game had a really cool combat system. I thought the music was pretty fucking sick. I thought that game was really cool. The problem, right, is that I remember I got into it the first time. I got pretty far into it. I was on like the 3rd dungeon, so I think I was like probably like halfway through the game or something, I think, because there's not like that many dungeons from what I remember. And I was getting through a decent portion of the game, and then eventually I just kind of put it down, and then I remember picking it back up again once, and I just kind of was like, I don't remember what I was doing, and I just kind of stopped. And the funny thing is that this was not the only time I tried to play Persona Q, because then fast forward like probably 4 or 5 years, I was now in college, and I was still playing my 3DS all the time, and I said, you know what, let's try Persona Q again. But I restarted the entire game, I played through the game all the way over again, and this time I actually got past the 3rd dungeon, and I made it to the 4th dungeon, which I think is pretty close to the end of the game. I think this is like probably maybe the 2nd to last, maybe 3rd to last dungeon. And then I just kind of stopped. And then I never got back into it. Part of that was because then it was like, Smash Ultimate came out. I was playing a lot of Smash Ultimate with people. There's also like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee came out, and that that was when started getting a lot of big hitter Switch games that came out, and then it was kind of the 3DS just went by the wayside. And the point of me talking about these games is not to talk about how I actually like them or whatever, but to show that I would start something and then just kind of never finish it. And it's not even like I hate the game and therefore it's like, I played it a bit, but I didn't really get into it, so I just kind of stopped. I enjoyed it, but it's just at some point life got in the way or other games got in the way, and then I just couldn't get back into it. And another example of this I have is with writing and drawing as well. Pretty much any sort of creative work, I would almost say. Because I feel like it is very easy for me to just have this fresh start. For example, there have been videos that I wanted to make, and I started writing them, and then I would stop because it's like, well, I wrote like 3 pages today, or like something, like I wrote like 10 pages of this script today. I'm good. Then I would stop for a little bit and not really work on it for a couple days. And then I would come back to it and be like, I can't write this because I'm not in the same state of mind that I was, and I don't remember everything that I wanted to say. I don't remember where I was going to go from this point. And then it just turns into I never write it. Or, alternatively, what I do a lot is I just restart. And then I start writing it. And then I stop because I've written enough. Then I put it down, come back to it a couple days later, and I say, I don't want to continue this. And so the cycle repeats itself. And I feel like every time I write, I always need a blank slate, because if I'm starting on something I've already worked on, I just can't do it. It just, the inspiration doesn't come to me. I don't know where I left off, I don't know what I was thinking, I don't know where I was going to go, and then I just give up. And then there's also certain productive days, I'm gonna call them. What happens is I go to bed thinking, all right, tomorrow we're gonna have this productive day. I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna do all this stuff, and I have my goals in mind already. Then I wake up and I'm tired and I don't want to get out of bed. And then that delays the start of my day. And then after that, I'm just thinking, well, I already fucked up my day, so whatever. And then those productive days end up becoming nothing. Because then I just don't do anything. You could even take that with today, right? Because today, I woke up and I was tired, partially because I went to bed late last night, which I'll come back to in a second. I was tired, and so I stayed in bed for like a while. Then I finally get up, but then I have like no ambition to do anything. So then, you know what I did? I was like, you know what? I really want to play like just one gold stake run of Balatro, dude. I just want one gold stake run, that's it. And then I'm gonna stop. And then it turned into like 2 hours of me playing Balatro. And then I'm like, well, that wasn't great. And this is kind of a trend that happens a lot on these like productive days. Because I'm thinking ahead of time like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Then it actually happens and I don't do it at all. And I think part of that too comes from the fact that then I just start these days and I give up. And then I say, whatever. And then because I've given up and I've gotten into that sort of habit of giving up, then I just give up the whole day, and that even includes later on. So then what happens is I end up staying up till like 2 a.m. and expect myself to wake up early the next day and think that it's going to be fine, and it's never fine. And so I thought about this a lot. I've thought about this whole idea of needing a fresh start, needing to start the day off right, this sort of thing. I thought about, how did this happen? Why is this happening? Because one of the things I've learned going to like therapy and stuff especially is there are usually reasons why these things happen. I've been reading this book. It's a very interesting book, to be honest. Basically about a therapist's kind of experiences, both with like her own patients, but then her own life, and also her therapist, because that's a thing that happens. You have therapists, they go to other therapists to kind of get insight into their problems. And I was reading this book, and she would often talk about how a lot of these things can kind of be like rooted in somewhere. Like, you don't just wake up one day and say, well, I can only do fresh starts now. It has to come from somewhere. So I was really trying to think about this today when I was thinking about this idea in the first place, and just thinking, where did this come from? Why am I so obsessed with fresh starts? Because it wasn't like I was like this as a kid. I mean, I guess there was maybe some sort of degree, like, oh, you know, the office supply thing. But why did this happen? Because before, when I was a kid, I could just load up a game I hadn't played in months and then just play it for a while and enjoy it. It wasn't like I had to, oh, I haven't played this game in a couple months, I gotta restart the whole thing. That didn't happen. So, what happened? And I thought about it for a little bit, and I realized there is kind of one, I would say, defining point, or maybe like two sort of defining points, but they're pretty close to each other, and they're kind of related. And it goes back to 8th grade. I did not enjoy 8th grade, I'm gonna be honest. It was kind of a miserable time in my life. And I feel like generally middle school usually just kind of is like a miserable time for most people, I feel, because you're going through a lot of changes in life. You're no longer just this kind of innocent, simple kid, who's just enjoying life and is happy or whatever. Because then, your body changes a lot, your mind changes a lot, you start to become more of a mature person, which means more responsibilities and more difficult tasks than just like, can you tell me what 2 plus 2 is? But for me specifically, I had kind of gone into 8th grade and I had a lot of issues. Right off the rip, I did not do my summer assignment, and that kind of set me up for failure for like the whole year, essentially, because your grades like compound on each other or something. I don't remember how it worked, but it was stupid the way we were graded. Because we had marking periods, but it was like cumulative, sort of, and it was bizarre. And so my grades sucked. And they always had been good before, pretty much. And now my grades sucked, and it was like, why do they suck? And I would just tell people, I don't know. I didn't want to do my work. So basically, I was failing. I didn't want to do my work. And because I was failing, I felt like there was really no reason to even try. Why should I try when I'm already failing and I've already kind of set myself up for failure? And I think it's this mentality that has kind of permeated into my life in a sense. Because before this, I was always trying my best. And now there was this moment where I just didn't want to try at all, and all I wanted to do was go home and play League of Legends, which I'll get back to later as well. I know I've said that many times, but it'll come back. But then something kind of happened, because I thought I was going to get left back. Honestly, I thought I was getting left back. I felt like I did terrible that year, and I didn't care. And then I ended up passing and going to high school. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to high school now. And when I got to high school, I'm not going to say I was perfect. Like, I remember I didn't do, like, some major project in English and stuff. But it was different, because now I really had a fresh start. It wasn't just, okay, I'm moving up a grade, but I'm still in the same school, I'm still seeing the same people. This was completely different, because now I'm in high school. There's new faculty, new teachers, new people, new friends, new classes, a whole new school that I've never been to before. It was like I had this completely new, fresh start. And because of that, it made it a lot easier for me to actually go and do the work that I should be. And on top of that, it made it much easier for me to actually change as a person, instead of just kind of being stuck, just being depressed, being sad. I was doing things that I should have been doing. And I've realized at this point in my life that has kind of made me really obsessed with that fresh start, to the point where I can't even play a video game anymore because I need to have a fresh start. And speaking of video games, there is one specific video game that I think also may have contributed to this, which also happened to coincide with this point in my life. A little game called League of Legends, which I was just looking into like the other day, and I was just laughing about, like, it's still ongoing. People are still complaining, games are still happening, and I frankly have no idea what's going on in League of Legends anymore. But specifically what I want to talk about in League of Legends is the concept of, FF, just go next, open mid, that sort of thing. Because I feel like for a long time that was kind of more shunned in the community. People wanted to play the game not just because they wanted to win, but because they enjoyed the game. And when I started playing it, that was like the thing I truly, truly enjoyed. I just wanted to play the game with my friends and have fun. Partially because school was not fun for me, but I played a shitload of League of Legends. But then, over the years, I kept playing League of Legends, but things kind of started to change. And I especially remember this. I would say probably it really started around Season 6. Because this was when they had dynamic queue and all this. And people started to get really obsessed with the idea of just winning. And I would see so many like Reddit comments where people would say, if I'm not winning, I'm not having fun. And I guess in a sense, like, yes, this is like a ranked video game, so it's like you are playing for competition. But I also feel like a lot of the spirit of the game started to just get lost at this point, because the game became so focused on winning, not on enjoying the game, just winning. That was all that people cared about. And sure, you could say this is a ranked mindset, but this even penetrated into normal ass games. Even fucking ARAM, man. Okay, ARAM is like the retirement home for people, whereas just random champions, one lane, no farming, no nothing, just play the fucking video game, just fight people and see who wins. And even if you don't win, you could have a fun time. Because the point of it is not really to win, the point is just to have fun. But even at that, people were obsessed with winning. And when winning becomes all that matters, you don't actually really care about playing the game anymore. The game is no longer the thing you're playing. You're playing to win. That's it. And when you're playing to win, all you want is wins. So when you start to lose, you just want out as fast as possible. And so that's why people started saying, go next. Or people started saying, open mid. They wanted to end the game as fast as possible because it was just about winning. And for me personally, there would be like games where it's like, okay, this is absolutely a lost cause. I think we could just stop trying our fucking absolute hardest to win. But generally, I did enjoy playing games and playing them out because it was fun. That was the point. The point of the game was to play the game, not to win. But then over the years, the game started to become much more, I would say, snowbally, where once somebody got an advantage, it was very difficult to stop that advantage from snowballing into just a complete win. And part of that comes from the community's obsession with just winning at all costs. And it even started to penetrate me a little bit. I would even have days where I'd just be like, yeah, I'm just gonna FF. I don't care. And I think this mentality kind of poisoned my brain a little bit, honestly. Because now, I wake up, and my day doesn't start off right, and I think, FF, go next. When, in reality, had I just played the day out, I could have gotten stuff done. But instead I said, no, I'm just gonna forfeit, I'm just gonna go the next day, and then the same exact thing is gonna happen again, because you're stuck with that mentality of, well, things have to start off perfectly, we gotta get first blood, we gotta get the first turret, we gotta be ahead in gold, we gotta get the first dragon, or else, why even try? And this is why I say, I feel like it kind of almost ties into 8th grade in a sense, because I got behind early, and I said, why even bother trying? Instead, what I did was I just played a shitload of League of Legends. So, yeah, I think you can start to understand where a lot of this came from. But when I started really thinking about this idea of the fresh start, I thought back to this video I'd watched months ago from this guy named Coley, who has a second channel called The Green Room, and I loved watching some of those videos, just watching like Wii Fit footage while he just talks about, you know, some basic ideas that he just has in his head and he just wants to share. And the most recent video he uploaded was a couple months ago, and it was called "You Always Have a Fresh Start." And I really liked that video because it just talked about how people are obsessed with the idea of fresh starts, especially things like New Year's resolutions. And most people never really follow through with that. They start a New Year's resolution, they say, I'm going to go to the gym every single day this year, it's going to be great. And they start it for a couple days, maybe it lasts like a week or something. And then they don't go to the gym one day, and then they never go to the gym again. And I really like that video because I think it does a great job at explaining the fresh start and why fresh starts are kind of this dumb idea in the first place. But then also he goes into a different thing, which is not having these goal-oriented ideas, not saying I'm going to go to the gym every day, but instead coming up with a theme, which he credits to CGP Grey, which I remember watching that video too. But basically, the idea of a theme is you pick this point in your life and you say, okay, I'm not going to have the specific goal of I'm going to the gym every day. Instead, I'm just going to focus on trying to go to the gym sometimes or trying to improve my health, and that way you get these kind of sort of little changes that eventually add up to a massive change. Instead of trying to say, I'm going to do this thing every day and then failing and then not having any change because you didn't actually complete the thing you were supposed to do. But as much as I like the idea of you have a fresh start whenever you want it, basically, you can just start a blank slate at any moment you want and say, all right, starting from now, I'm in the season of weight loss. I'm in the season of creativity. I'm in the season of talking to people. I also kind of don't like the idea of a fresh start. Because yes, fresh starts are awesome. I love fresh starts. But they have a number of problems. The first thing about a fresh start is, I know this kind of goes against what I just talked about with that other video, but fresh starts are kind of rare, or at least genuine fresh starts. You get one New Year's Day every 365 or even 366 days. So if you miss that fresh start, that genuine fresh start, you gotta wait a whole year to do it again. And that means fresh starts are very time consuming, because if you miss that fresh start, you gotta wait to get another one. Or let's take the video game example, right? Let's say that you got 20% of the way through some video game, and now you're thinking, well, I kind of want to just start over again. So you start over, but here's the thing. You were 20% of the way through Persona 5, and now you're starting over again, and now you've got to go through an hour of cutscenes. And then you have to go through the whole first palace again, and the second palace, and you've just wasted hours and hours of your life. And the reason why you just wasted hours and hours of your life is because you told yourself you needed a fresh start when you really didn't. And the other thing about fresh starts too is that they're very inconsistent. Technically, yeah, you could use like the New Year's example, but realistically in life, you're not going to get fresh starts very commonly and frequently. They're going to be very inconsistent. You might not get a technical fresh start for years. And so waiting for a fresh start like that is kind of just a gigantic waste of time, realistically, when you could have used those years waiting for a fresh start to just do something. I also think that most great things aren't really done with a fresh start. You don't just say, all right, you know what? I'm gonna make the Mona Lisa just out of nowhere on New Year's Day. That's not gonna happen. When you're making something that is truly great, it usually takes a lot of time and refinement. You don't usually just start something and then boom, it's just perfect and you've made your life's work. That does not happen. Most things are kind of built over time and usually have a lot of effort put into them. This also kind of ties into the next thing too, which is making mistakes. Because I feel like I tend to make a lot of mistakes and then just kind of beat myself up over them afterwards. And the easiest example of this is going back to what I was saying before. I played some Minecraft yesterday, and I've been watching this guy called Solace, and he plays like an older version of Minecraft, and he's like, I am gonna try to not look things up and not make things the way that they're supposed to be made. I'm just gonna play the game my own way, how I'm gonna do what I want to do. And so I've kind of tried to go with that mentality, and while I was playing this world very early on, I managed to actually find a spider spawner, which is pretty fucking cool. And I was like, well, I have this spider spawner, maybe I'll try to turn it into a farm, turn it into like an XP farm, and then I could enchant stuff and all that. So I started working on this spider spawner farm. And then, after like probably an hour or so, I realized it didn't work at all. It did not work in the slightest. Because I've kind of, I guess, gotten used to like modern Minecraft things where mobs are always trying to swim up and all that. This version is a little different, and so I just completely messed up my design. And this kind of frustrated me. I ended up just quitting afterwards. I was like, alright, you know what, I'm done for the day. I spent like an hour on this thing, and it didn't work out the way I wanted it to at all. So, I'll come back to this another day. And I've thought about it, and said, maybe I should have just like looked something up and it would have saved me time. But then I think about it, and also think, you know what? Mistakes are kind of learning opportunities. Because now, I know how the game works a little better, and now I can, maybe next time if I find a zombie spawner or something, I'm not going to make that same mistake that I made this time. And I think by constantly waiting for fresh starts, you are stripping yourself of learning opportunities, essentially. Because you're not letting yourself make those mistakes and learn from those mistakes. You're just waiting for the perfect opportunity. And this also kind of delves into perfectionism, which I think I was considering talking about that here too, but I feel like that might just be a whole separate thing at some point. I don't know. But the point I really wanted to drive home is that I feel like you don't really need a fresh start. It's okay to just start something that's already in progress, or continue something in progress. And so this is the part of the video I didn't really script at all, but I thought about it and I was like, I kind of want to put it in here anyway. How am I going to go about fixing this problem? Because I feel like this is a very deep-rooted problem. This isn't just like some sort of idea that I had once and I can just throw it aside and go back to what worked. This is something that is very deep-rooted in my brain and is almost like an obsession, if I'm being honest. An obsession with having a fresh start. And so I need to figure out how to fix that. And to be honest, it's not something that's going to be a very easy fix. But one of the ideas I had was, for my birthday, my parents got me 2 games. They got me Donkey Kong Bonanza, which was the game I wanted. And then they got me another game, so I was like, oh man, what's this gonna be? And I thought, maybe it'll be like Pokemon Pokopia, or whatever that game is, because, Pokemon. But I opened it, and it was Breath of the Wild Nintendo Switch 2 edition. And I said, great! The game that I could never get myself to play, now I have 2 copies of it. One which costs $60, one which costs $70. Great! But here's the thing about that. I've thought about it. I've said, you know what? Maybe it's kind of an opportunity for me. Because yes, I kind of have never really gotten into Breath of the Wild. I've kind of been like, I think it's a little overrated, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe this is a chance. Maybe this is a chance. And it's very easy for me to go, all right, time to restart the whole game all over again and just go from there. But I think I'm not going to do that. I think I'm going to go back to that save I had back in 2017 when really the only Switch game worth owning at the time was Breath of the Wild, and it was the game I was just playing for a little bit. I'm going to go back to that save, and I'm going to beat the game after all this time. After, what, like 9 years? Oh god, it's been 9 years? Oh shit. Oh fuck. But I'm going to go back, and I'm going to try to beat the game. And I think another thing I'm going to try to do is to stop having those days where I feel like I have to wake up perfectly and do everything perfectly. And just say, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. Even if maybe the day doesn't start off the right way, I'm going to find some ways to salvage it instead of going, I give up. And going back to the start of the video, I think I'm going to try to make a schedule that allows me to make mistakes and also allows me to kind of bounce back or just commit to it. Maybe I'm not going to complete everything one day or whatever, but it's just the act of being able to say that I have a consistent schedule now, instead of just giving up and hoping that things are going to get better. Because I feel like giving up is just not the best idea. And with that, I think I'm going to end things here. I think I'm going to try to stop procrastinating on the things I should be doing because I'm waiting for this fresh start and just do it. We'll see what happens. I don't know how all this stuff is going to go, but you gotta try, right? And also, I'm probably gonna stop trying to play as much Balatro because, yeah. I'm gonna go figure out how to spend the rest of my day, make my new sort of schedule, revised schedule, I guess. And also probably gonna go to Walgreens because I gotta get some more mouthwash for my teeth that are slowly getting fixed. I'm not gonna lie, I was not 100% sure about the crown that I got, but now that I've kind of had it in there for a little bit, I'm like, you know what? It's alright. Feels alright for now, and I mean, it's temporary, and then I get the permanent one in 2 weeks, so that's cool. That was another thing that I was kind of like, you know, fresh start. Let's just have a fresh start of just, I don't know, I guess I get like reincarnated or something, and then, hey, I'll have teeth and then I'll take care of them. Don't do that. Don't wait for a fresh set of teeth, because that might never happen, or probably going to be costly. I've learned that lesson now. But yeah, I guess that's it.